Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on the Cool Sports Network and Chasing Sports' YouTube channel for yet another edition of Wednesday Windup. This time, a little bit shortened. Usually, here on these Wednesday Windup episodes, we go through many different topics in the world of sports, break them all down with precision, really try to analyze, go in depth into all of those situations. Today, we're just looking at one. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter Wednesday Windup compared to usual because there is one topic in the NBA playoffs that I feel like I have to break down here as we pretty much enter, as we already have entered the second round of the NBA playoffs. Hope you guys do enjoy. Please subscribe, follow, share, view. And that is the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks series. Now, before we really get into that, because that is going to be the juice of the episode, I want to talk about just a few other things that stood out to me from the NBA playoffs. Number one, James Harden fooled me again. I thought something was going to be different. Once again, Game 7 Harden showed who he is, showed his true colors come postseason time. And I think we learned that maybe the identity and the foundation of this Clippers team that I thought was championship like, clearly that's not the way to go. And again, is it the way to go? And was Harden just the missing, the weakest link? I don't know. Can James Harden ever win a championship as a top player on a championship team? That is still to be determined because I thought this could be the year where at least LA makes a shot and they go with OKC and they take that series of 7 games, but they couldn't even get there. And they got run off the floor in Denver. It was actually pretty embarrassing for a Clippers team. And I've been such a fan of all season, and I've been vouching for it throughout the entire NBA season. A very just frustrating and disappointing game. As someone who wanted the Clippers to win, I've been a fan of Harden's for a long time. Kawhi Leonard is extraordinary. Kind of tired of Denver in a sense. It's been a lot of Jokic, as great as he is. I was personally hoping that LA would go, and I thought they would. So to watch Denver do that, that's extraordinary. Then to watch them, go on the road and beat Oklahoma City. I still got the Thunder, but I think we're learning about the Thunder's vulnerabilities. And if they show, I think Minnesota and Golden State they're going to be able to exploit that. I just think they'll be able to beat Denver because Denver made so many mistakes in that series against Los Angeles, and that's why I thought the Clippers would go. Like you saw 2 missed layups on two different occasions down the stretch from Russell Westbrook. Like he did not have a good series for most of it. Yes, he did step up in Game 7, but it felt like the Clippers outmatched the Nuggets' mistakes. I don't think we're going to see that again from Oklahoma City, but a true disappointment on the Clippers' end to not even be able to get to that series with the Thunder. Just kind of an embarrassment, if you want me to be brutally honest with you. Timberwolves beat the Lakers. I didn't see that one coming. I thought that series was definitely going 7. I was actually going to come on here. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to record, but I was going to come on here and tell you guys that LA was going to win Game 5 and that they were going to win it by a substantial amount. I thought they were going to cover the spread. I thought they were going to win the game by 20 points. I just thought they were going to come out firing. Clearly, that team didn't have that kind of heart. They didn't have that kind of resiliency. Who do you blame that on? Do you blame it on the coaching? Do you blame it on Luka's conditioning? Do you blame it on the combination of Luka Doncic and LeBron James? Do you blame the depth? Do you blame the lack of center play? I've seen a lot of blame be distributed over this past week or so. To me, I think it's a lack of center. I think that was key. And I obviously think that, once again, you can't just throw talent on a team and expect it to work. And I think we learned that. And I think that we learned a lot about the Lakers. When the Thunder, I said if the Thunder didn't shoot well, the Lakers would move on pretty easily. And the Timberwolves, they didn't shoot well, and the Lakers still didn't move on. They couldn't even take it to 7 games or 6 games even. So very disappointing there. Warriors passed the Rockets. Young team, don't be worried about Houston, but just when in doubt, pick Golden State. Then on the Eastern Conference, everything was pretty much chalk. Really, a window in Milwaukee that seemed to be open has been without question closed. I can't see Giannis getting back to a conference finals or even a championship in his time with Milwaukee over the next few years. You look at that core, you see Dame's injury. He's probably going to be out for most of next season now. Kyle Kuzma is clearly not going to be their number 2 scorer. They don't have the draft assets to trade for other pieces. They don't have the player assets to package and go even get another star if they so wish. The Bucks are kind of stuck. And as sad as it is, the only answer might be to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo, unless you want to be a 5th seed in the next few years and maybe make one miracle run to the conference finals. This team is not a championship team. And it's very sad that they had a window that was wide open with one of the game's best talents of all time. And it's been seemingly diminished. And they've seemingly become one of the NBA's most disappointing teams and very quickly at that. But we saw Boston get past Orlando. We saw the Knicks get past The Pistons on a Jalen Brunson shot at the top of the key, a double bang from Mike Breen, the 9th time in history. The decorated announcer went with his iconic double bang call. And so we have here Boston, New York, Celtics, Knicks. This is the kind of series you want. One, just for ratings. Two, for the whole rivalry factor. I don't care who it is. Boston versus New York is always generating a rivalry and some sort of competitive flair. And then these are two teams that you saw Boston make 29 three-pointers, tied for an NBA record against New York earlier this season. And the Celtics were 15 of 60 from three-point range. And that's how, in game one, and that's how the Knicks were able to move on. I was texting with a good friend of mine who is a Celtics fan, and he was like, oh, we're going to win this series easily. And I wrote him right after the game, and I'm like, are you sure about that? Because I kind of agreed with him, and then I saw what the Knicks did. And I truly do think if the Knicks needed to win one game, it was going to have to be that game. They needed to get the tempo going. They needed to show who they were. And not only did they do that, but they trailed by 20 in the game. They came all the way back. Shout out to Jalen Brunson. Shout out to OG Anunoby. They had absolutely outstanding games. Brunson, as always, coming up big in the clutch. But you just have to think that the Knicks doing this has generated some sort of confidence in that locker room. I just think that this Knicks team showed who they are. They got out-rebounded by 10. They trailed by 20 throughout the entire game. And yet they still, or not throughout the entire game, for a good portion of the game, they were down big. And they still won this game because Boston simply couldn't shoot the three ball. And that is why I wouldn't be too concerned, because you can't expect them to miss 45 three-pointers every single game. However, I did mention this stat while on Twitter. You guys can look it up, Chase Coburn, @Cool Sports Kid. I tweeted this out while also acknowledging that I had the Celtics winning the series and still have the Celtics winning the series. Though, this is what I said, every NBA champion since 2019 has not made it back to the conference finals in their quest to repeat. Now, 2019 Raptors going back in 2020. No Kawhi Leonard, obviously you can't compare, but they lost in the second round. I was really high on that team too, but they fell to Boston, ironically. I'm in the second round. Then 2020 season, 2020 champion Lakers. 2021 dealt with injuries, couldn't even compete against that Phoenix team in 2021. They were run off the floor. 2021 Bucks tried to go back the next year, got to the second round, though could not get to the conference finals as Chris Middleton went down. And ironically, Boston, again, was able to take down Milwaukee in that series. Then it's Golden State. They couldn't get back to the next round thanks to a brilliant effort from the Los Angeles Lakers, who went to the conference finals that season. I feel like I'm repeating the same teams all over again. 2023 champion Nuggets, lost last year to Minnesota. And then now you have this year's champion, Boston Celtics. And everyone, including myself, thought Boston would break this rule. They kept the same core. They didn't have an old roster. They were well coached and not dysfunctional across the franchise. And they stayed healthy. Like, they check off all the boxes that those teams didn't. The Raptors didn't keep the same core. The Lakers and those Bucks teams, they didn't stay healthy. The Lakers, they were very dysfunctional during that span. The Nuggets, they didn't keep the same core at all. One of those Lakers teams, they had a really, really old roster. Same with that Warriors team. And so I think that Boston just checked all the boxes of a team that could repeat if we were going to see a repeat champion, which we haven't really seen, or we have not seen since the Dynasty Warriors era. And I feel like we haven't seen like a repeat champion in that way. We've seen dynasties, but we haven't seen like a back-to-back champion in such way, if that makes sense. I thought this Boston team would definitely exploit that, and they very well could. But then there came their three-point ball. They missed 45 threes in the NBA playoffs in game one. That's the most ever in the playoffs, a record that's actually been broken 3 times throughout this postseason, which I think is just a testament as to how many threes teams take on a game-to-game basis at this point in the NBA, but also a testament as to how inefficient they are and how reliant they are on the three-point ball. I mean, Boston has lived by its three-point shot in the 2024-25 season. They take it a lot as well. They broke the record for most three-pointers made in a single season this year in NBA history. Kind of a byproduct of taking the most three-pointers as well in a single season in NBA history. They shot 36.5% from three-point range this year, which wasn't terrible. But again, that's when I tell you they make the most three-pointers ever in a season. It's not because they're the most efficient. It's because they took the most, or more than any other team, and by a wide margin as well. But when the three-point shot wasn't there, they didn't have ways to adjust. They were 2-8 when they shot under 30%. 14-11 when they shot under 35%, which isn't a bad mark. But you got to think about this as a team where 36.5%, that's not a wide gap. But yet you just lower that percent about 1.5%. And this team is a slightly above 500 team. And this team that we're talking about is the team that is favored to go back to back, the team that feels unstoppable, the team that won 61 games this year as the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference and the number 3 overall record in the NBA in the Boston Celtics. So were they just living by the 3 ball? Because then I look at, okay, the 3 ball isn't working. You have a great coach. You have a great overall roster. Where do you go? Go to your star, Jason Tatum. 4 points in the fourth quarter in overtime. Go to Jaylen Brown. So persistent on taking the 3 ball. He was 1 of 10 from downtown. The bench saw just 15 points that were non-3-pointers. They don't have a dominant big or a dominant big presence, at least, or paint presence off the bench if the 3-point shot isn't falling for the team. Boston shot 35% from the field. They had less points in the paint and more fouls as well. They also lost this game in a game where New York shot under 55% from the 3-point line. So I just think that this is one of those things where there's no reason to panic. Boston lost the game in overtime by 3 on a last-second steal from one of the game's best defenders and one of the NBA's most meticulous defenses in the NBA, while missing 45 3-pointers, simultaneously having the worst 3-point shooting game in the history of NBA playoff basketball. However, you cannot sit here and tell me that the Knicks aren't going to adjust as well. And to not be able to pull off a win where New York really didn't play their best basketball, again, out-rebounded by 10. Very rare you could be out-rebounded by 10 rebounds in an NBA playoff game and find a way to win. Mikal Bridges was not his best. He was 3 for 13. Overall, the bench, you saw 11 points from Miles McBride, 3 points from everyone else. Precious Achiuwa was a -7 in his 5 minutes of action. It just felt like this Knicks team was really running a 6-7-man rotation throughout the entire game. You saw a guy like Mikal Bridges play 51 minutes in one of his worst offensive games of the entire season. Karl-Anthony Towns got in foul trouble, and they still couldn't get it, and they still got it done. So you got to think the Knicks are going to adjust in different ways, and at this point, I think it's going to become a coaching battle between Joe Mazzulla and Tom Thibodeau, 2 of the best in the game, and that's why the series is going to be so exciting. Now, stealing 1 on the road for New York is huge, especially because they do have one of the best home courts in the NBA. That wasn't evident against the Detroit Pistons, but they have one of the best home court advantages in the NBA, one of the most passionate fan bases in the NBA as well. However, home court advantage, I would argue, is not as important in the NBA. You look at the NFL, teams in the playoffs this year were 10-2 at home. That clearly made a difference in many of these games this year. In the NHL, teams are 32-15 so far at home. That has clearly made a difference. In the MLB and NBA, however, that feels to be different. 22-21 at home were teams in the MLB this year. In the NBA, the teams are 25-23 so far at home, just above 500. And you saw games where the Clippers took one in Denver. They lost the series. You saw Orlando, right? No, Orlando. It's hard to remember all these series off the top of your head, but we saw multiple series where the one team took a game on the road and it really didn't matter. It did not matter. Like you saw Houston take one on the road in Golden State, though they had already lost. So the point overall that I'm trying to make to you is losing one game at home in the NBA is not as impactful as losing one game at home in the NHL. Or obviously the NFL, you're done for the entire year. The NBA, there isn't as much of that home court advantage factor. And so that's going to keep the Celtics alive in this series. However, again, if you're thinking about home court advantages in the NBA, no team's got one better than the New York Knicks. And if the Knicks are able to take both of their games at Madison Square Garden, then you enter panic mode in Boston. And maybe the stretch of the Raptors, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Warriors, the Nuggets, maybe the Celtics are added to that list to make it a 6th consecutive team to not get back to the conference finals in their quest of repeating their title they claimed the year prior. Boston, New York is a little bit later tonight. You're probably seeing this as the game is starting. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, a much shorter edition here of Wednesday Windup. Just really wanted to break down the series. If you're a Boston fan, you don't panic right now, but I think tonight's game is going to show a lot about. Personally, I think Boston's going to win this game big. I think they're going to come out blazing. I think they're going to come out firing. I think this is going to be a team that is just playing for blood. I think this is going to be a team that's fighting for every ball. They're going to do the little things better. And I think they're going to win this game big after having a historically bad performance from three-point range. I think the three-point shots can be fine for Boston. However, it's all going to come down to what New York does at home, and then that will dictate how this series will go from there. My official prediction, Knicks, clicks, bricks, Celtics in 6. That's just me. We're going to wrap this run up here. Thank you guys so much for joining me today here on Wednesday Windup. Coming up, some future episodes, we're going to have a lot of Wiz Talk with Chase coverage, NBA Lottery May 12th. Stay tuned for that. A lot of NFL Draft, NHL, MLB coverage over on my newsletter. Link is in the description to that as well. It's really cool interviews. It's a really cool content as a whole coming soon here on the Cool Sports Network. You won't want to miss that. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Signing off, I'm your host, Chase Coburn, saying so long from the NBA playoffs and this incredible 2-3 series in the East semifinal between the Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks. Take care.